reality is that the court was created for a very good reason, to be a court of last resort, one that would swing into action where a country either couldn't or wouldn't effectively police itself. And so the principle of what's called complementarity is at the heart of the court's creation and what it does. And in Israel, you have a vibrant, independent, and very active judicial system.
Let's not beat around the bush. America is choosing to look the other way and allow Israelis to commit genocide in Gaza. There is no other way to describe this. This is the reality.
On April the 4th, President Biden conditioned U.S. military aid to Israel on improvement of the aid situation, among other things. So I'm wondering, why isn't the current dire picture in Gaza triggering a bigger policy shift? Thank you.
Not that you need any evidence of just the length that America can travel in defending Israeli genocide. We had one more evidence today, and that evidence came from none other than American Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who was in Prague to meet his NATO partners, just to formulate ways on how America can drag more and more European countries into a full-fledged conflict with Russia. After that, he addressed a press conference and in which he took few questions. The first question was from journalist Humaira, who you have seen many a times in the regular State Department press briefing. She asked a pointed question reminding Blinken about Joe Biden's pledge in early April that the future American support to Israel would depend on Israel's ability to increase more and more aids into Gaza. That was right in the wake of those brutal murder of 7 foreign aid workers by Israelis. You have to watch what he says.
And on Gaza, the UN said humanitarian aid going into Gaza has dropped by 2/3 since Israel began its Rafah offensive. Your colleague, USAID Administrator Samantha Power, who's an expert on genocide, yesterday said the humanitarian conditions in Gaza were now worse than ever. On April the 4th, President Biden conditioned U.S. military aid to Israel on improvement of the aid situation, among other things. So I'm wondering, why isn't the current dire picture in Gaza triggering a bigger policy shift? Thank you.
With regard to Gaza and the humanitarian situation, the humanitarian situation remains dire for people in Gaza. We've seen changes, some positive changes, but the net effect is not there. The positive changes are that, of course, crossings in the north have been opened in recent weeks, including Zakim. We have a route from Jordan that is getting trucks in. If you look at the number of trucks that are actually getting to Gaza and going in, it's up significantly. But distribution within Gaza is not working effectively. And part of the reason for that are the combat operations in the south. In addition, Rafah gate continues to be closed. President Biden secured an agreement with Egypt and with Israel to make sure that goods could go through Kerem Shalom, including goods coming from Egypt. But Rafah remains closed, and that's a real problem. So the focus that we have, continue to have, and are working on intensely every day is, again, making sure that we're not just measuring inputs, we're measuring impact. And yes, the impact remains insufficient in terms of addressing the acute needs of children, women, and men in Gaza. But it's a moving story every day as we're working intensely to make sure that the different access points are working and then distribution within Gaza is working more effectively. And that's what we're focused on.
Since President Biden conditioned this on it, then why wouldn't you use that leverage? The United States provides almost 70% of Israel's weapons. That gives it a big leverage, and President Biden specifically conditioned it on this and other things. Why wouldn't you use that policy?
The issue is the conditions are such that the effective distribution of aid is being impeded, and that's what we're working on, trying to make sure that the conditions are there, and there are ways of doing this much more effectively. We're trying to get the results. That's what I'm focused on.
He repeats the obvious that the aid materials aren't enough, and that's exactly what he's been repeating, or his minions have been repeating for last several months, without realizing that each hour, each minute, each second is crucial for those millions of Palestinians. And Israelis, supported by the Americans and the Britishers and the EU and Canada and other countries, are starving Palestinians to death. Starving. It could all end today. All Israelis have to do is to allow all the crossings available for the aid materials to enter. It's as simple as that. And America has the power to make it happen. But America is choosing not to do that. America is choosing. Let's not beat around the bush. America is choosing to look the other way and allow Israelis to commit genocide in Gaza. There is no other way to describe this. This is the reality. So this question was asked, and see what he has to say. So he's saying that he's going to judge it by, not by input, but by impact. And you would think that, oh, okay, so the impact is better actually. No, he is so shameless that he admits that, yes, even impact is not good. And it has never been good. 40,000 people have been killed and counting. That's official. Unofficially, only God knows how many people have been killed. People are being forced to starve to death. And this shameless politician has the guts to come and defend Israelis. As we know, it's been a month since Israel has taken control of Rafah crossing from Palestinian side and stopped a single truck from entering Gaza. A single truck. That was absolutely a lifeline for millions of Gazans. Israel has stopped. At least average number of trucks that should have entered Gaza every day was around 500. But now it's less than 200 every day. More than 1 million people have been forcibly displaced, which is a war crime, because Israel decided to defy everybody and launch military offensives in Rafah. America, which used to say that it will oppose any Israeli offensive in Rafah in the absence of a concrete plan for evacuation. That concrete plan has not arrived till date, but America's line has changed and America is fully behind Israel. I'm not saying that. You only have to watch the last couple of press briefings by the State Department spokesperson or John Kirby at the White House to know that they're fully behind. Not one word of condemnation. For all you know, all these people, the stakeholders in American administration, they might even have the dual citizenship. We don't know. So therefore, they might have their personal interest to look after in Israel. So we are not surprised. We are not surprised that why America is so hell-bent in defending Israeli genocide. And another reporter asked him a question about the role of international courts like International Criminal Court or International Court of Justice. To which this clown had the audacity to say that, look, the role of the prosecutor, ICC prosecutor Karin Khan, was basically shameful. He uses the word shameful. Why? Because he has applied for an arrest warrant against the war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu.
And former President Trump's trial was defined by his efforts to castigate and delegitimize a court of law. Does that give you any pause about how the Biden administration has responded to another court of law, the International Criminal Court, as well as the International Court of Justice with regards to Gaza?
I'm not going to comment on the first part of your question because, as I've long said, I don't do politics, I do policy. With regard to policy and the ICC, look, we've been very clear about this. The decision that the prosecutor made was, in our judgment, profoundly wrong-headed, and in creating an equation between Hamas and Israel, Hamas's leaders and Israel's democratically elected leaders, as we said, and as I've said, it's quite frankly shameful. The reality is that the court was created for a very good reason, to be a court of last resort, one that would swing into action where a country either couldn't or wouldn't effectively police itself. And so the principle of what's called complementarity is at the heart of the court's creation and what it does. And in Israel, you have a vibrant, independent, and very active judicial system. And in the case of Gaza as well, there are many incidents that are under investigation, including some under criminal investigation. There's a case right now before the Israeli Supreme Court about the alleged denial of humanitarian assistance for Gazans. And so Israel and its system, its democratic system, with independent courts and judges, as well as a military justice system that can effectively investigate any allegations of abuse, that should be allowed to run its course. And given that, never mind the fact that we don't accept the jurisdiction of the court over Israel, but leaving that aside, Israeli justice should be allowed to run its course. Finally, I think it's very deeply unfortunate that Israel was prepared to cooperate with the investigation, even while rejecting the jurisdiction of the court. And yet, the prosecutor chose not to pursue that cooperation.
This is the extent that these clowns are prepared to go. And they expect the world to now still believe in American version of democracy, American version of rule of law. I hope that America is fully exposed to the rest of the world as it is exposed to all of us here. Because my real concern is that these idiots have now embarked on creating another conflict, which they have created. But the way they are planning is that they will drag a lot of European countries into a war with Russia. And I don't think America itself would like to get involved. But America nonetheless would involve other countries from the Europe, including its poodle, United Kingdom. That's why it's quite frightening. So it says that Israel has a rule of law. Really? Israel has independent judiciary. Really? Can he tell me a single judgment by Israeli court in the last 50 to 60 years whereby Israeli judiciary had punished its own citizen for the war crimes committed in Gaza? We know that more than 100,000 people have been brutally killed over the last half century and millions displaced from their land illegally. America believes, right? We have shown you videos from those press conferences that America believes that there have been a lot of atrocities being committed by settlers, militant settlers, that's what they say, settlers in the West Bank. Can he point out to one example of Israeli court punishing them? Can he point out one example where when Americans were killed by Israelis, their killers were brought to justice by Israeli court? But Blinken and his cronies would like us to believe that everything related to Israel should be left to Israel. Israel should be the suspect, should be the accused, should be the judge, should be everything. This is the unfair world that they are creating to defend Israel. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.